Chair recognizes Mr. Cummings. You may proceed.
Secretary Geithner, I don't know whether you realize this, but it was the Democrats that asked for this hearing. I specifically asked for this hearing. Did you know that?
I believe I did know that.
And let me tell you that when I asked for the hearing, I must tell you that I was extremely concerned, and I was questioning whether you had acted appropriately. And I think anyone who read headlines back then when this hearing was requested would have come to at least the question mark. And you stood here a few moments ago and you swore that you would tell the truth. Is that correct?
I did.
Is that correct? And I assume that the statement, your written statement, is a statement which you would also swear to?
Absolutely.
And I can tell you that as I read your written statement, I'm trying to figure out, as far as the initial getting involved with AIG and what you all did, I don't know what anybody else would have done. I don't think we had a choice. Or did you have a choice? So let me say that I think we did the right thing there. Now, this is where it gets sticky. We also have a situation, Secretary Geithner, where the American people are concerned that a lot is being done for Wall Street, but not enough being done for Main Street. You understand that?
Absolutely.
And one of the interesting things is that you talked about how if you had not taken the action from the beginning, how it might have affected Main Street, the constituents of all 435 members. Can you tell us, if you hadn't taken the action, how might it would affect students in my district or businesses or whatever? Can you tell us that? Because I don't think that that's getting through.
Thousands of more factories would have closed their doors. Millions more Americans would have lost their jobs. The value of Americans' houses and savings would have fallen even further than they did at that time. People would have rushed to take their money out of banks. It would have brought about utter collapse. I don't know a better way to say it than that. And if people wonder whether that was true, I think all they have to do is look back at what actually happened in the fall of 2008. And you saw the value of American savings fall by almost 40%. Trillions of dollars in lost wealth. Millions of Americans lost their homes. Thousands and thousands of businesses had to close. That's what happens when you let a financial crisis get out of control. Governments should never let that happen. But if they don't act, and this is a very important thing to people understand, people think it's unfair for the government to act to rescue a financial system. But you cannot help an economy recover. You can't create jobs. You can't preserve the value of people's savings without a functioning financial system.
Another moment when we requested the hearing that I was concerned about was this Counterparties. As you probably know, I, along with 26 other members of Congress, we requested that Secretary Borowski look into that whole issue. And there have been comments at the Capitol levels that the Counterparties were tenuous, and had they not been paid in full, they risk collapse. Was this a real possibility?
In my judgment, that was not the most important risk posed by AIG. AIG's failure would have posed some direct losses on those major banks. But those losses themselves were not the issue. They would not have been significant. The threat to the system, and this was a threat to all institutions operating, was the threat of collapse of the system as a whole. And if AIG had failed, you would have seen a crisis spread to insurance companies around the world, and you would have seen investors, depositors, creditors pull back from every financial institution in the world, and that would have brought a much more precipitous collapse in all financial values.
My time is running out. Just real quick. When the public has so much invested in a company, isn't it better to err on the side of transparency, Mr. Secretary, as opposed to keeping things secret?
Of course. Of course.
So what would push the decision to not be as transparent? I mean, what would cause that?
There are very few cases where it is necessary for there to be either a lag in disclosure or some gap. I'm not sure how to the best way to explain this, but like in national security, like in law enforcement,
Gentleman's time's expired, but you can conclude
like in the
your
protection
answer.
of confidential supervisory information, but also to protect the taxpayer, there are some areas in which you need to be careful about how you manage that. That's a discussion, though, you should have with my colleagues at the Fed. They're in a better position to answer it. But we would not want to disclose information that would be bad for the taxpayer, make it harder for the taxpayer to recoup our investments. But in general, Congressman, I completely agree that transparency and disclosure are essential. The American people deserve it, and we have been very effective in bringing an unprecedented level of security to all the basic actions we took in this financial crisis. An unprecedented level of transparency and disclosure.
Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Mr. Micah.